In the event that you have any of your colleagues who cannot come in, we have sent we have put the YouTube link on the page, LMS page, and it's also in the chat box. You can send it to them. Why is Victor Akande raising up his hand? Victor Akande, what is it?
Apa? Paling jadi
You can't hear anything because I've muted up. And I will not start transmission until 105. The instruction we have is that we should not start on 5 minutes into the commencement. 5 minutes extra should be given to allow students to log in. So I will not start at 1, even when I'm here before 1. And now we have to leave you 5 minutes to 2. If you know of any of your colleagues who is not here because we have reached the maximum capacity of the Zoom facility, you can send the YouTube link we have posted here to him or her. And we also have that same link on the LMS page. What is the problem Jamil Maruf is having? Jamil Maruf, what is the problem?
I have no problem, sir, again.
Why are you raising up your hand? Or you know the meaning of hands up? Lower your hand if you have no problem.
No, I'm not hearing the audio.
Now let us start at this time. Let me welcome you to this lecture. This is supposed to be not like the classroom lecture per se, interaction between the students and the facilitator. As mentioned in the LMS page, what we are doing is to take care of the T's and the I's that were not properly crossed or dotted during the last week of interaction. I'm aware that many of you have responded to the discussion forum. I want to commend those who have participated in the discussion forum before it was locked. The discussion forum for last week, the question is, it has been said that the importance of the concept of dimension arises from the fact that any mathematical equation relating to physical quantity must be dimensionally constant. What does this mean? Your response must not exceed maximum of 200 words. Some of you are writing that you can't hear me. Is that correct? If you cannot hear me, can you raise up your hand? I'm not muted here. If you cannot hear me, let me see your hands up. Okay. Hands down. For those who can hear me, can you raise up your hand? You can hear me. Those who can hear, as it is now, raise up your hand if you can hear. Okay. So it's like the problem is not from my own hand. Only few of you cannot hear well. Majority hands are up. So the problem is not from my own hand. Check your connection there. So the question of the last discussion, that's what do we mean when we say that any mathematical equation related to physical quantity must be dimensionally consistent. All we are saying here is that when you say A is equal to B, it's your equation. When you have an equation like A is equal to B, we are saying that when you look for the dimension of the left-hand side where you have your A, and you also look at the dimension of what you have as your B, they must be the same. If you have an equation like A is equal to B plus C, we are saying that for that to be correct, the dimension of A, which is the only item on the left-hand side, must be equal to the dimension of B, which is a term on the right-hand side, added to another term on the right-hand side. You can lower your hand. I have taken my decision based on the hands you raised earlier. So lower your hand so that we can enjoy the interaction. So when you have A equal B plus C, if it's dimensionally consistent, when you take dimension of A, it must be equal to that of B, it must be equal to that of C. If the equation is A equal B over C, A equal B over C, if it is dimensionally correct or valid, then dimension of A must be equal to the dimension of A B over C. Dimension of A on the left-hand side, standing alone, must be equal to dimension of B over C put together. And you are permitted to find the dimension of B alone divided by what you have as dimension of C. For the totality of B over C dimension must be equal to A. That is what we mean by the expression we have as a discussion forum for last week. So having said that, I want to shed some light on an aspect of what we have last week before we build on the exercise. We have this screen last week when we were talking about every quantity we measure as is a unit. Let me, in the first instance, talk about the left-hand side, super unit. Of course, these are not the only super units. We have just given an example of super unit. When we say 10 raised to power 3 is equal to kilo, what we mean is that 10 raised to power 3 means 1,000. So we mean 1,000 meters equal 1 kilo. The second one, 10 raised to power 6 meters. That is 1 million meters equal 1 mega. The next one, 10 to 9. That is 1,000 million, which is 1 billion. 1 meters make 1 giga. So there's always meter behind each of the number you see on the left-hand side. And there is 1 in front of each of the items you have on the right-hand side. Now, on the right-hand side where you have the subunit, 10 to minus 3 equal milli. We mean that 10 to minus 3 meters equal 1 millimeter. 10 to minus 6 meters equal 1 micro. 10 to minus 9 meters make 1 nano. So that is the way it should be understood, so that when you need to use them, you will not have problem with it. So the next thing we want to do is to go back to the problem we solved and then link it with an aspect of what we ought to cover last week that we were able to cover. This is because I have the Zoom is running at the same time. Maybe on the same system, you have two facilities, YouTube as well as the Zoom. So I will ask them, what do I do so that the echo will no longer be there? But for now, let us be at it. This is the first time of having to have the two on my screen at the same time. Now look at equation star. We want to find out if this equation star is valid. If you are a new student of physics, it's likely you are familiar with this equation star, where you have V is equal to U plus AT. The V on the left-hand side represents final velocity. While on the right-hand side, we have a U. The U represents initial velocity, A represents acceleration, and T is time. If this equation is dimensionally valid, when we find the dimension of V, the final velocity of the left-hand side, when we find this dimension, it must be exactly the same thing as dimension of U that is standing alone. And it must be the same thing as the dimension of AT when we find it out. If it is not so, then the equation is not valid. So after the equation start, the next thing is to test it and see if everything is in order. You can now see I have put V inside the square bracket on the left-hand side, telling you that I'm looking for dimension of the item inside the parentheses. The same thing I have for the right-hand side. So it's like find the dimension of the two sides. Dimension of V, dimension of U, dimension of A times dimension of T. That is what I have done in line 2. In line 3, what I have here is now putting the dimension I know. I know that the dimension of V is L to the power minus 1. So I put it on the left-hand side. I know that the dimension of U is also a velocity, is L to the power minus 1. I know that the dimension of A is L to the power minus 2. I have put it there. I know that the dimension of T is capital T. I have put it there. So after that, we then combine terms, we apply indices, and then we can see the result. And that is what you have in the star star. In star star, left-hand side, there's nothing to do more than to reproduce it. The terms are standing the way they are. There's no other L, just one. T is just one, so it's standing the way it is. Then on the right-hand side, we have LT minus 1 for U. And we also have LT minus 1, the result of A times T. And that is what gives us equation double star. When we look at this equation double star, we observe that there are just one term on the left-hand side and two terms on the right-hand side. Each of the terms are the same. Each of the terms is the same as the other. The only term on the left-hand side is equal to each of the terms we have on the left-hand side. Because they are all the same, that is why we say that this equation we have that leads us to this is valid. So having done that, the next thing we did last week that I want to put some meaning into today is now to look at another application of dimension analysis. The first one we have just considered is to check the validity or otherwise of an equation, that is either to validate or invalidate a given equation. That is what we have just done. The second one now is to derive the dependence of one quantity on other quantities in an equation. We want to find the exact dependence. That is what the example is all about. We are may depend. There are three variables: the length L of the pendulum, the mass M of the bulb, and the energy of gravity G. These are the three things we have been told experimentally determine what is the size or the value of the period of the single pendulum. Having been told that these are the three variables that determine its value, then the next thing is to write a test equation. Equation that will show that you have the understanding that T depends on L, depends on M, and depends on G. That is what we are going to have in the next slide. So we are now with equation triple star, which comes from the understanding of what we have said earlier, that T is a function or depends on L, the length, depends on mass, depends on G. To what extent, we do not know. That is why we allow our L to carry an index, our M to carry an index, G to carry an index. The indices are what we shall look for. Once we have their value, then the equation will come out naturally. So we have just used X, Y, Z as our indices. You may use ABC, you may use KT, you just use letters you want to find their value. They are just dummy. You can use any letter, but do not use letter that will confuse, that will clash with any of the letter that you already know is playing the role of that letter. Use a different letter to serve as the indices you want to find out. Now we already have the plurality sign, T proportional to. To remove the plurality sign and use an equality sign, we must introduce a constant. That is why we now have T equal K L raised to power X, M raised to power Y, and G raised to power C. The K comes in now because we have removed the functionality sign and we have introduced an equality sign. So once equality is coming in, there must be a constant that goes with it. So equality goes with that constant K. We use K here, you may use any other letter to represent your constant.
The more important thing is that you should know that we have removed plurality sign and we have introduced equality, and the constant k must come in. The k we have introduced here is a dimensionless constant. So is the dimension is 1. We take it as a pure number. Now the next thing, having written equation triple star, we then want to take the dimension of all the terms we have in the equation. Then we can keep our constant somewhere. We will need it later. But if we want to even use the constant now, we will put 1 in place of it. So we will leave the constant somewhere, and we remember to use it when we want to write our final result. So that is now how we move from equation triple star to equation quadruple star. We now take the dimension of the left-hand side and the dimension of the right-hand side. Well, I'm just taking some time to look at the chat box. And yes, some notice that it's breaking. I deliberately decided to do that because I can see the echo. So if I am talking and there's echo, then you will no longer hear. So I am waiting for the echo to expire so that I can see something. Like I mentioned earlier, before the next class, I will have technical team. What do I do? Since we know that the Zoom is running at the same time with YouTube on my screen, how do I do it so that the echo from one will not affect you? So let us just manage it the way it is today. Sabiko, what do you want to tell us, Sabiko? Sabiko, can you or tell us what you are, why you are raising up your hand? Sabiko. Sabiko, why are you raising up your hand? Is there any problem? Okay, let's continue. So we take the dimension of the left and the right. The only item you have on the left is T. And what is the dimension? Capital T. You have T raised to power 1. Then on the right, so the dimension of L is capital L. And the power of that, or the index of that, is X. The next one is mass. The dimension of mass is capital M, and the index is Y. The next item there is G, acceleration due to gravity. The dimension is L to the power minus 2. So we can then write that in terms of index Z. And that is what has led to L raised to power Z, T raised to power minus 2Z. So we can again combine terms that are the same, and then use the rule of indices to sort things out. When you look at the left-hand side, the only term there is t, so there's nothing to combine there. But when you look at the right-hand side, you have more than one head. One is carrying the power of x, another one is having the index of z, so we can combine them. Simple rule of indices. Since it's a multiplication here, then you are going to have their indices. The hem has just a y as its index. The t has minus 2z as its index. That is how we arrive at equation for quadruple star. You can reserve the comment on which I could just line. Now we have intentionally omitted k in our equation for the start. The next thing now is to now equate the indices of fundamental quantities. The only fundamental quantity we have on the left-hand side of equation for triple star is t. There is no other fundamental quantity there. So when there is no other fundamental quantity on the particular side, we put it as index 0. So let us take n now. We start with the fundamental quantity n. On the left-hand side, there is no n. So we take the power of L on the left-hand side as 0. Whereas on the right-hand side, we have S plus Z. That is how we arrive at, for L, 0 is equal to S plus Z. And that means that S is equal to minus Z, equation dagger, or equation plus. We have done business with fundamental quantity N. The next thing is to take another fundamental quantity until we have exhausted all the available fundamental quantity in this equation for triple star. So the next one we are picking is T. T on the left-hand side has an index of 1. But on the right-hand side, it has an index of minus 2z. That is why we now say 1 equal minus 2z and make z something of the formula so that we can get is equal to minus half. Now that we have a value of z as minus half, in equation dagger, the last equation we had, we know that s is equal to minus z. So if z is minus half, then automatically s will be half. So we already have the value of index x. We already have the value of index z. We are looking for the last index, that is y. We shall have that when we take the last fundamental quantity here, which is n. Now, when you take a fundamental quantity M, since there is no M on the left-hand side, we can as well say that we have M raised to power 0, in which case the index is 0 there. On the right-hand side, there is an index for M, that is Y. So we now have 0 equal Y. So we have all the players now. All the indices are being obtained. We have the value of X, we have the value of Y, we have the value of Z. So we then go back to our original equation, triple star, and put the value of the indices. Beautiful thing we then come about. Now we have put in the value of indices in the equation triple star, and as well remember to bring in the value, to bring in the K we put in the cooler. We have brought it out from the cooler so that our equation triple star we have completely. And that is how we have T is equal to K. L initially is having an index. The index value has been obtained as R. M does not, is having an index, and the value of index of M, which is Y, is 0. G is having an index of Z. Its value has been obtained as minus R. So since you now have M raised to power 0, that means M is never part of the equation. So we just have to throw it out. So having done that, we can then use our understanding of the indices. When something is raised to power half, that means that object we are looking for is square root. When it is minus power of half, that means there is a reciprocal there. And that is what gives us T equal K root of L over G. That root sign is standing for power of half. The G is a denominator here because of the minus that is index as. That is how we arrive at T is equal to K root of L over G. Ordinarily, based on what we have learned about dimension, the last thing we can do is what we have done. We cannot go further than that. Our equation should be just T is equal to K root L over G, because we are not given any other information about our constant K. So that is the last thing we should write. However, we are happy to note that experimental results have told us that this K you are looking for, this dimensional constant K you are looking for, its value is 2 pi. We already know that from experiment. So we can then put it in equation, and then the familiar equation of the simple pendulum, you then see it as the last line of this slide. So if in the future you want to use a method of dissection, this is the way to go. And where you have a constant like that, and you don't have any information about its value, just put it there. Certain information will be given later to show you what that constant is. But if you are not given information, don't leave it like that. Let the constant be part of the expression you are writing. You have not committed any crime. The last sentence here says, thus for a simple pendulum, we have determined the exact dependence of its period T on the length L and elevation due to gravity G. Now, it is good to note the following before we round up. These are very, very essential. Item 1. Generally, the dimension of any physical quantity can be written as you see in the equation star here. Any physical quantity given to you, say velocity, say acceleration, say area, say force, any physical quantity, you can write it out in terms of the 7 basic fundamental quantities that we have as equation star. You just write it like this and put the indices there. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Or you use any other letter to represent the indices. So by the time you are now going into action, any of these quantity that is not part of the dimension of the quantity you are looking for, we blow off. We just die naturally. But generally, this is the way to go. So the equation, the information you have below the asterisk equation is just giving you all the information I've given. That's L, M, T, I, theta, N, J. They are the symbol for the dimension of length, fundamental quantity, mass, fundamental quantity, time, electric current, thermodynamic temperature, amount of substance, and intensity. They are all fundamental quantities. And we have decided to give them indices of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They are assumed indices whose value can be found based on the reality they are facing. The item 2 to note, the value of each of the exponents in the equation star has to be carefully determined to validate the correctness of the physical quantity of interest. Say, for instance, if you want to find the dimension of area, we are saying that put your area inside a square bracket. Equate it to L raised to power A, M raised to power B, C raised to power C, I raised to power D, theta raised to power E, N raised to power F, G raised to power J raised to power G. Write it like that. So having written your quantity like that, the next thing is that when you now split the quantity into its definition, for example, I'm hypothetically considering area. If you are looking for area, put area inside the square bracket, and then write is equal to L to A, M to B, T to C, I to D, theta to E, N to F, J to G. Then the area inside the square bracket. What is area? Length times length. So having obtained the information that, or having defined your area as length and length, that means in the definition of area, there's no mass, there's no t, there's no height, there's no theta, there's no n, there's no j. That means all of those ones will not have index. They have zero index. The only surviving quantity there will be n, because definition of area means n times n. So n is to power 2 will then be equal to L raised to power A on the right-hand side, M raised to power 0, T raised to power 0, I raised to power 0, theta raised to power 0, N raised to power 0, J raised to power 0. So the only time that survives is N. So the index of A is equal to 2. The item 3 you have here is giving us information that dimensionless quantities are also known as a pure number. So when you say a number is dimensionless, take it as a number. Quantity that is dimensionless is a number. You can easily put its dimension as 1. And that one come off from the fact that all the basic, all the fundamental quantities, their power for that one will be 0, 0, 0, 0. And you know anything raised to power 0 is going to give you 1. That is why dimensional quantity are always taken as a pure number, take it as 1. The next thing to also note is item 4. Some dimensional quantities have units. Take note of that. Ordinarily, we don't expect dimensionless quantity to have units, but we are saying that there are exemptions. One of such exemptions is angles. Angles can be measured either in radian or degrees, even though angle is a dimensionless quantity. But strangely, angle has dimension. Sorry, has a unit. The dimensional quantity having a unit. So it's one of the exceptions. We don't expect dimensional quantity to have a unit, but angle is one of the exceptions. Take note of that. Another thing to note is item 5. If you are asked to define frequency, frequency mathematically is cycle per second. And that's defined X. That cycle in the definition of frequency, the numerator in the fraction, the frequency is cycle over second. That cycle there is a dimensionless quantity, even though second is a unit for a fundamental quantity. So circle as is a dimensionless quantity. So you have a dimensional quantity inside a dimension, a quantity that has a dimension. So beyond that now, all we are having now is telling us part of what we have mentioned earlier. When we say we are looking for dimension of length, we can write length as raised to power 1. And we write all the 7 fundamentals, except length, all dimension of mass. Before we arrive at dimension of mass to be m, we have taken all others to be having indices of 0. The same thing go for time. So that is how we arrive at what is the dimension of this fundamental quantity. When we expire, it is the only one that will survive. The last item we have on the screen before the homework should have been labeled item 9, not 5 again. Any quantity whose dimension is such that all the powers or indices or exponents in the equation star is 0, i.e. A equal B equal C equal D equal E equal F equal G, and they are all 0, is said to be dimensionless or has a dimensional unity. I mentioned that point earlier, that in the dimensional quantity, we have unity as a dimension, because all the fundamentals will carry index of zeros. And that will be equal to 1 at the end. Just before I talk about the homework, there's something I have more intentionally omitted, and it's very important you note it. The argument of the standard mathematical functions, the argument is dimensionless. Say, for instance, sine whatever, cos whatever, exponential whatever, logarithm whatever. That whatever, whatever you put inside that bracket, we are saying that item inside the bracket is dimensionless. So it's going to be a number, because the input will be a number, the output will be a number. Please take note of that. I have forgotten to put it on the screen. Okay, now we are done with what I have for you today. But my eyes has caught a question or a comment. Somebody was saying, hope we are going to be taught all this when we do. Please, yes is the answer. When we meet physically, we will still take you through this so that nothing will be missing. We know that a number of you have challenges with network. So when we meet eyeball to eyeball, I think you will resume in May or so. When you will come in, we are still going to take you through all of it so that you will not miss anything completely. So it is now time for questions. So if you have any question for me, the next few minutes, let me take your question. If you are not having any question, please let your hands go down. Do not raise your hand when you have nothing to say. Let me give attention to Isaiah 243-371. Isaiah.
Yes, sir. The question is about the discussion question of time and mass.
Isaiah, I can't hear you clearly.
The question is about time and mass. Time and mass.
I don't know if it's my network or your network. Can you write your question in the box? Write your question in the box. I can't hear it clearly. Write it in the box quickly. Write your question in the box. I will read it. Let me give somebody else. Elim Obises. Elim. Elim Obises, the question. Elim Obises. Somebody is asking if you have to do homework. Homework is what it is, homework. It's not assignment. That means you are given the liberty to attend to it at your convenient time. Nobody will ask you to submit. That's just it. It's only assignment you need to submit. But homework, admire it, do whatever you like with it. That's just it. Early mobilization. Early.
Okay, sir. My question is this. You say, on the slide, you put that current is a fundamental quantity. But, sir, the formula for current is charge over time. And charge is measured in coulombs. And time is measured in seconds. So is current still a fundamental quantity or charge, sir? Hello, sir. Sir, did you hear my question?
Charge is a fundamental quantity. Where do we I'm coming? You are making reference to a slide, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me look for it. I think I had you. I'm coming. Okay. Okay, we have this in our equation start. We have length, mass, time, electric current, thermodynamic temperature, amount of substance, and luminous intensity. These are the fundamentals. The charge is not listed. So, is there any point you have a confusion somewhere?
Yes, sir. That was my question. Is that my question? Sir, my question was whether charge is a fundamental quantity or current. Is it
Electric
that
current.
charge is a
Now, you have this slide when we were introducing the unit of a quantity. We listed the fundamental units. One of them is amount of substance, the ampere for electric current. So the fundamental quantity there is coming. Good. From where we started, when we defined the two group of physical or measurable quantities, when you look at the item below 2, the 7 fundamental quantities are mass, time, length, temperature, electric current, amount of substance, and luminous intensity. Anything outside this is not a fundamental quantity. So if there is any portion of the slide that we'll look through later, if there is any portion of the slide that is creating confusion, I will remove it and let you know our next class. But the fundamental quantities are as listed on this slide.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Unfortunately, it is time to leave, and I guess somebody else is waiting to call me for another class. Well, I can still see some. Maybe in our next class, next Monday, I will create 5 minutes. I have to leave the class so that somebody else will also